And this is the I'm just proud of this artwork. So I'm gonna I'm just proud of the artwork. Let me go to the other side to make sure that we're on. It's all linked up. I think there's some lag right now, but I'm gonna bring up wait, no, I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna take you out first. All right, let's see if it's working. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy, I think it's a Friday right now. It's been such a crazy week over here at Connection Crüe, if you will. We are prepping for the upcoming Kids Crüe Oklahoma City event, and that's going to be next Friday from 6 to 9 at the Science Museum of Oklahoma. So get your tickets. I'm going to put the link for the tickets in the comments. I'm just going to kick off. Laura, I'm just going to real quick before we continue with our conversation. I'm going to get all this stuff out of the way so we can kind of dive in. And I want to say, obviously, good morning, everyone. But yeah, so October 28th, which will be next Friday, bring your kids in the Oklahoma City area, wear your costumes, come learn about energy, how hydrocarbons are essential to every day of our lives, every aspect of our lives, and also get pumped about STEM activities and hobbies. Take that home, start doing slime, annoy all the parents and all that fun stuff, and learn out why slime annoys your parents. I'm going to put the link for the tickets there. If you're not in town or if you have friends open in Oklahoma, please share it with them. And I'm going to go drop that here. Boom, boom. And then I'm going to bring it up, and you can find it in the comment section. That's the link for the Kids Crüe tickets. And I just kind of want to show the banner, or sorry about this. Got to get all this out of the way. Kids Crüe tickets are on sale. We got some great STEM presenters from Inventive, 89 Energy, Nova Oil and Gas, as well as Rocks Exploration. And Night Fire Specialists kind of came in the mix last minute, which we're pumped about. They're going to do some cool STEM activities for the kids. I want to give a shout out to our STEM sponsors, Inventive, awesome group over there, New Park Fluid Systems, legit group of people over there, and our community sponsors, Ascent Resources and Placer and Wald Consulting Corps. And that's the intros for now. I'm going to bring up our guest right now, coming in from the Big Apple, the city that never sleeps.
Oh, I slept.
I understand how when I travel, I get the worst sleep when I travel. I can't do it. See, everyone's tuning in from right now. David Gibson, it's working. Good morning, David. I hope all's well, buddy. David was kind enough the last Kids Crüe to donate. Actually, David, you got a little screen time this week. I was on the was Jeff Criley show up in Dallas, and he played the Kids Crüe thing. And we had a Dave Gibson out there kind of giving a shout out. So check that out. That was a pretty cool experience. Omar says no video. No, we got video now. I think it's working right now. So if you're tuning in, I want to say good morning. It is 9 o'clock Central Time. That means, Laura, you are talking to us from the future right now.
Exactly. I'm fully caffeinated from the future.
So where are you right now?
I'm in New York.
New York City?
It's not a very good view, but that's the city out there.
Get a rope. New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if you're tuning in, we're how this works. We're gonna kind of have a conversation, and kind of at the end, if you want to chime in, or in the middle, we can kind of open it up and kind of get some conversation right now. But I'm pretty pumped about this, Laura. It's been a minute. Obviously, it sucks that we're not seeing each other as much as before. But obviously, you've been busy. I've been busy. We've been on the road and all that stuff. But I love seeing what you and the team over at EnergyFunders are doing.
Yeah,
I mean, you talk about blowing and going. I mean, it's gotten to the. I feel like it's gotten to the next level.
Yeah. It's been a really good year and a half. Things have really stepped up, and Q4 is always a big investing season for us because of intangible drilling cost deductions for tax purposes. So we get a lot of investors in the last quarter of the year. So yeah, been running around like a chicken with a head cut off. So crazy.
You and me both.
I know. I thought we were going to run into each other in Denver, but we seem to have just crossed paths both times. So
always cross paths. Denver, actually, I've never had to go to Denver until I started doing the Crüe events up there.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I had no network up there at all. I knew a couple people that moved up there, but you talk about a good, great city with some great people. I mean, I love visiting there. I love visiting the people up there. It's always solid folks. So
I'm trying to get my brother and sister-in-law live in Denver. Well, they technically live in Golden.
Okay.
I was trying to get them to come to the last Crüe event, but they have a 17-month-old child. And so
just put in
sometimes
the
they don't
car.
get to go do things anymore.
Once you lock the car, crack the window like our parents did, just come on into the event. So let's see who's tuning in. Let's give a couple shout outs. We got Justin Brignac. Good morning from Cypress Golf Course in Houston, the Montana Tech. Man, I wanted to go to that. I love everyone that I meet from Montana Tech, and I know it's good people up there. So you're going to have fun today. And the weather's beautiful here in Houston.
Perfect golf day.
It's a little chilly up there in New York.
Yeah, it's like 50 degrees out, which of course to a Texas person is like,
that's like
it's like freezing basically. I felt like such an idiot on the airplane. I had like 4 coats. I'm like, okay, just in case.
Here we go. We got James and Alstein saying good morning from Oklahoma City. Looking forward to next week's Kids Club event. Cannot wait to see you, brother. It's been a minute. Cody as well from Yukon. Okay, so is it Yukon or Yuckin? I feel it's like Yukon, but I feel like saying Yuckin because it sounds better. Gibson reports tuning into YouTube is way more stable. Okay, well, I mean, either you want
check it out. Yeah.
Either you want the toxicity of LinkedIn feed or you want the stability of the YouTube feed. It's up to you. Some people like the toxic traits in certain things, so that's fine.
All the red flags.
Lindsay Farrow, good morning. Good morning, Lindsay. Lindsay's also been blowing and going everywhere. She's been running around. I want to go head to Vegas later today. Uh-oh.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
I'm in Boston. No video. Audio is okay. Well, that's strange. Hey, if you want to, try to head over to the CrüeTube channel on YouTube. I'll put that, if I can, or Gibson Reports. David, if you want to put that in, I'll bring it up so people can keep jumping back and start. Okay, hold up a sec. Sorry about this, Laura. I think there's some issues connecting it to LinkedIn right now. So if everyone stands by, I'm gonna go over to my channel and put the live feed. What's going on right now? If everyone stands by, there we go. All right. So LinkedIn, more stable video. Sorry about this. If anybody wants to click the link below for get kind of more of a stable conversation so you can follow along versus kind of jump back and forth, that'd be awesome. Craig is saying hello. We got a lot of geologists right now. Laura in the mix right now.
Yay. Hi, Craig.
So we got the CrüeTube right here. You can tune into that. So, okay. So, yeah. So talk to me. I mean, it's been a minute. So a lot's been going on in your life. You've been doing a lot of traveling.
Mm-hmm. I spent the summer in Colorado.
Okay. All right. Was that personal or was that kind of for work as well? Were you kind of balancing?
That was completely personal. That was, I kind of hit that like early July, when it was like 105 for a week or whatever. And I actually listed my house in Houston for sale and didn't want to be in town anyway. And so I called my family and was like, hey, can I just come hang out for the foreseeable future? So I went up there and hung out, and, I'm from there originally. So it was nice because I got to go fishing almost every day and go hiking every day and not be 105-degree heat, which was
like on the same. That's one of those things where it's like you go up there and it's your room, your Debbie Gibson poster still up there, like nothing's been touched, like
no, not at all. I moved out when I went to college, and I went to college in Boulder as well. So they lived like up the street. My second year of college, I lived across the street from them in my old math tutor's house. Yeah. So I saw my parents a lot in college, but as soon as I moved out, they turned my room into the office and they got a hot tub and central air. And I was like, well, I'll just go fuck myself. It's fine.
And central air.
I know, it's so funny. So it was a little, it's as a, 38-year-old coming back to my parents' house for the summer, it was kind of weird, having lived by myself for so long, but it was nice. It's really pleasant to be around family, especially for that long. I got to see my niece kind of like really start to grow up a little bit. She basically went from being a baby when I got there to like having a full, she could basically speak. Yeah, which is pretty cool. So that was awesome.
So weird. I'll put everyone after not seeing her for a week, and it's like, okay, so how do I get a little like 12-year-old when she's 9? So All right, so
Amazing.
let's dive into this.
Let's
So
go.
for everyone out there, Laura, why don't you kind of give us the elevator spiel on kind of first off, give us who you are.
Mhm.
For those that don't know Laura, that's you're definitely missing out on a great person, great conversation, and someone
Thanks,
that's
JP.
very finger on the pulse when it comes to kind of the oil and gas industry and investment. So, Laura, give us a little spiel on you, and then let's talk about EnergyFunders real quick and kind of what's been on your plate and what you and your team have been working on for the past.
Okay.
So let's start with you first, and then let's go into. Okay.
Cool. We can do that. So I'm Laura. I'm a geologist. I'm from Colorado originally. My family has been in oil and gas for a long time. My uncle's a geologist as well. And so when I was growing up, we spent a lot of time outside. And when I went to college, I was pre-med, and my uncle suggested that I just try a geology class because he tricked me into thinking you got to go outside. So I took a geology class. It was wonderful. I took a couple more, and then I decided to add a major. So I have a pre-med and a geology major from CU Boulder. After that, I had a couple internships actually at smaller oil companies when I was in college, which was amazing because like that really helped color the direction that I took my kind of career. So I worked for Whiting Petroleum for a summer, and then I worked for this tiny little company called, oh my gosh, Bahamas Petroleum for a summer. I did not get to go, alas, but we were exploring down in the Bahamas for analogs to the Cantrell field. So and that's one of the largest, most productive fields in the Gulf of Mexico. So did that, and then went to work right after undergrad at Williams Production in Denver. Okay. So I worked the Piceance Basin, chasing rigs for, about a year and a half, 2 years. Petered out on that because we went from drilling, we had 21 rigs running to 4 rigs running. It was 2008, so that price crash, we dropped a bunch of rigs, and I was kind of like, well, I'm not really being effectively utilized here, and I feel like I need to go back to school and learn how to be a better geologist. And the people with the master's degrees in geology all get to do better projects, and it's a little more interesting. So I applied to Colorado School of Mines and UT and got into both, and decided that I'd been living in Colorado plenty of time and I should go to Texas. So I came down to Texas. I traveled for 6 months, and then I went down to Texas, sight unseen. I'd never been to anywhere in Texas. And I put my 2 wiener dogs and all my shit in my Subaru.
You know what? Of course.
I know.
Coming in the Subaru from Colorado. I love it.
Exactly. So I packed up my car, I had my doggies in my Subaru, and I got to Austin, and it was so hot. I have never been so hot in my entire life. So it was amazing. Grad school was fantastic. I had a wonderful time. I met my now ex-husband there. We're still buddies. He's also a geologist. He works for XCL Resources. Check him out, Luke Fiddler. He's been doing some really good work. He actually just put out a big paper on what they've been working on, it's a really good technical paper. So grad school was amazing. Had a great time, moved to Houston right out of grad school, went to work at Anadarko. So I worked at Anadarko for about 3.5, 4 years. Actually, it was 4 years. And again, started in ops in the Marcellus up in Pennsylvania, and then did that for quite some time. Ops is hard. Ops is really hard work. And I always recommend that new geologists have to work onshore ops first. Okay. Because it really teaches you, I personally believe it teaches you commerciality, and it's so fast paced that you really have to figure out how to crank out maps, steer wells, understand the reservoir dynamics, understand EURs, understand economics. Whereas some of my buddies who got into, let's say, international exploration, it's just so much slower that it takes people a lot longer to really like cultivate that like true understanding of why oil and gas is important and like what we're actually doing. So I highly recommend that for kind of new geos and engineers. As working ops is tricky, but it's really good. So went from ops to onshore exploration, and really excelled in onshore exploration. So Anadarko kept me around in that area for the rest of my time there. I worked on a lot of business development stuff for them too. And I ended up looking at like almost every basin in the lower 48 except the Gulf Coast, which is ironic because now I almost only drill Gulf Coast wells, which is hilarious. So I'm learning a lot, which is really fun for me. I've always I like jumping into new basins because you can get into nitty gritty detail when you make like a prospect map.
Okay.
But when you come into a new basin, you have to understand the entire basin dynamic. Like, what is the source? What is, how long? What was the burial temperature? How does everything work? So it's a little more like big picture. I'm a good big picture person. When it comes down to like detail, I usually flake out. So anyway,
I'm kind of the same way. I got you big picture. You got this vision when it comes to like the deal. Well, how are we going to do this? You're like, yeah, I'm not worried about that. We'll cross that bridge when we need to cross it.
Exactly. I'm always a ask forgiveness, not permission person. And I think that kind of goes along with that thought is like, well, you come up with an idea and you just go for it. You do the same thing, JP. I think that's why we get along so well. It's like when you first started talking about Crüe before it even had a name, it was like, I have this cool idea and I don't know how to do it. So I'm just going to start, which is amazing. So left Anadarko, things got a little weird at Anadarko for a while. So I decided to leave and I went over to the private equity side. I worked for 2 different NCAP sponsored portfolio companies, left one of those and went and raised my own capital from a group called Juniper Capital in Houston. Raised $75 million to go explore in the Powder River Basin. So I hopped over to the Powder River Basin and drilled some Turner horizontal wells in a kind of a new area. It was really, I would call it exploration. It was sort of a different area, and actually geologically pretty different from the rest of the Turner wells too.
So when that first $75 million that you raised, was that the first time that you were raising funds for?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That was the first time I had ever done that. And it was not entirely by accident, but kind of by accident. I didn't really anticipate. I had this idea and I didn't anticipate it actually panning out. I mean, I'm a geologist, right? So I'm like, yeah, this could happen, but I never thought I should try and go raise private equity capital. There was a geologist who had worked at Juniper who called me and said, hey, we need a geologist for one of our other assets. Will you come in? And I went in, and toward the end of the conversation, it was more of like an interview than anything, but toward the end of the conversation, I said, I've been looking at this other prospect. I'm really interested in it. Do you guys want me to come pitch it to you? And they said, yeah, please do. So I went and worked up economics and fleshed out a little pitch deck and all that kind of stuff, and went back a couple weeks later, and they asked if I could put a team together, and I said, I don't know. I'll try.
Yeah.
And I did, and I put a team together, and then we operated this this package for a couple years, and then we got handed a much larger package of wells from Juniper, and we operated that for a couple years, and then most of our acreage was federal, and I'm, at heart really an exploration geologist and an exploitation geologist, so my interests lied more in finding new things than operating existing wells. And so with the combination of Biden getting elected and our federal acreage becoming basically undrillable for the foreseeable future, and not being particularly thrilled about being a production geologist, I decided to make the jump over to EnergyFunders. So I've been at EF for about a year and a half now. And, you were a part of the beginning of that. So that was an interesting time, and we've grown since then. We've changed since then. We're constantly evolving, and I personally am always constantly evolving and trying to figure out what's best for investors and myself and the world basically. So it's been an interesting couple of years for sure. There's a lot of stuff going on.
So let's kind of real quick. I kind of want to ask you a question about raising the capital, but then I want to kind of give us kind of the 3-sentence thing of what EnergyFunders. So when it came to kind of raising capital, the first time you did this, the $75 million stuff, to me, that's I would assume that's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, it's different circles than you're used to. It's different conversations than you're used to having. So going out and raising that money and really not, I guess, look, I'm assuming a lot of things here, but like that seems like a new conversations you're having with new people and all stuff. What's some, because a lot of people are on this boat right now. A lot of people are looking for funds. A lot of people are looking to either invest or to kind of gain capital to invest in their projects right now. I mean, what kind of advice would you have taught yourself back then? Like, what 2 pieces of advice would you give yourself back then to kind of make it a little bit easier, the transition a little more smoother for you?
Raising capital, I always say that I'm not the best person to ask that question to, because my experience the first time was I helped raise for the second PE portco at NCAP, that was called Sable Bay. And the CEO of that company had already raised before. And so I kind of tagged along with him. So I had a little bit of experience in the boardroom with NCAP, trying to see how things work. And so I had an idea of like, this is what we traditionally presented. And so I just turned that around and like I said, I basically accidentally fell into it. Juniper was extraordinarily supportive and like super helpful of me as a young female geologist raising a bunch of money to try and go drill these wells. So like that was really great because I kind of patched together a pitch deck and, I had a good story. I think the most important thing is the story, right? It's like everybody's a salesperson, and I think the best geologists are kind of the best salespeople. I mean, if you want to go drill a prospect, you have to be able to raise funding for it, and you're not going to raise funding for it unless you know how to talk about it. So I think that, having your story down, I don't think, to me, and other people might disagree with this, but to me, it doesn't matter as much what your pitch deck looks like as like how you present yourself in the room and the story that you're telling. So it's difficult, but I don't have pieces of advice for myself because I just sort of always go with the flow. And so when this all happened, I was just like, okay, we're doing this today, and now we're doing this today. And so it was just sort of like, okay. And that's of course how I still am. I keep trying to change it, but I can't.
So let's dive into energy funders. So for those of you that aren't familiar with energy funders yet, energy funders, and obviously, Laura, you come in and kind of correct me or tell me that I'm completely wrong, because I know a lot about a lot. So energy funders, what I enjoy about energy funders, the fact that it's a platform that allows individuals. You don't have to be in the oil and gas industry. You don't have to know all that stuff, because you provide pretty transparent, information about what you're investing in, the expected rate of returns, et cetera, et cetera. So in reality, it's like, I guess the best example is, those real estate websites that people kind of can put in real estate and all that stuff. Well, this is exactly like that, but for U.S. oil and gas investments. Not just oil and gas, but it's also Bitcoin. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Did I? So what am I missing?
You nailed that pitch. Good job. Yeah.
Well,
you still got it. You got it. You want a job?
So let's talk about this. So energy funders, you've been leading the show, leading the change and the drive for probably, what is it, 15, 16, 17 months now, 18 months?
Yeah, I came over in April 2021.
And so y'all closed your the first fund, right? And right now, let's talk about the new fund that's out right now that I'm seeing. First off, I love it. America First Fund. All right. Yeah. You want to invest in America, you invest with energy funders. So talk to me about, I guess, kind of what is America First Fund with
Yeah, so we actually have technically 4 funds open right now. The first fund we raised last year was our Yield Fund 1, and that was specifically designed to be more of a yield vehicle for investors. We take 90% of the income from the fund and reinvest it into new wells. So we bought a combination of PDP production and new drills. And what's really interesting about that is that helps with tax deductions on the new drill side, but you're also getting the benefit of basically a discount purchase rate of PDP. So you're getting cash flow from the oil and gas assets already, and then also taking that cash flow and drilling new wells.
And then also, what is that audio?
That's probably me. Hold on, I'll mute.
No, now you're muted. Now we can't even talk. So pretty much that also kind of reduces the volatility of the investment, because a lot of times when people think of oil and gas investing, they think of it like, well, here's $10 million for this wildcat well, and like it's dry hole, low well. But like the way y'all are approaching it is y'all are offering several different wells, several different PDPs, whatever, and then it's kind of it helps kind of reduce the volatility of investment.
Yep, that's exactly right. So concentration risk, right? So
that was
when energy funders first started, they would drill one well at a time. And most people who are familiar with investing in oil and gas assets are familiar with this one wildcat well at a time investment process. There's a lot of doctors and lawyers who like to invest in oil and gas in order to offset their taxes. And so traditionally, the only things that were available for those sorts of people to invest in are, really heavily promoted deals that such and such geologist came up with, and they're going to take 20% off the back end and all this crazy stuff. So most people are unfamiliar with this new thing which we're doing, which is basically investing in a basket of wells, or a handful of wells instead of one well at a time, which again, from a statistical perspective, helps balance your risk portfolio. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so the first fund was the Yield Fund 1.
Right.
There's three more.
There's 4 more. So there's a Yield Fund 2, which is basically a replica of that strategy that we had in the Yield Fund 1. There is a drilling fund, which is actually intentionally more wildcat wells. Technically, like as a geologist, I would not call them wildcat wells. I would call them like low risk offsets. We call them LOROs.
Right? It sounds so cool to play wildcat well.
I know. I love the idea of wildcats, but I'm not going to put investor money into a wildcat well because I'm still trying to make EnergyFunders work. And you know what? People don't come back if you make zeros.
Yeah.
So we are trying to do our best to mitigate a lot of the risks inherent in oil and gas drilling. So myself and my partner, Ginny's a reservoir engineer and an attorney, which is fabulous for me. Yeah. She does all our regulatory stuff and all our reserves analysis. And she used to work for DeGoyer McNaughton out of Dallas. And so when she does her reserves analysis, I always am like, oh, couldn't you like juice this a little bit? Man, this looks terrible. She's super conservative when it comes to reserves, which is very, very good for, really good for investors, right? Like you don't want an optimistic engineer doing your reserves and being like, oh, it's going to be 10 BCF well, when realistically it's probably closer to 1 BCF or less, you know, like that's not a good thing to go out and, I've always been more of a conservative geologist anyway. So we try really hard to balance that risk by being a little bit more conservative and really taking our time to evaluate prospects and all that kind of stuff. So the Yield Fund 2 is intended to be very similar to the Yield Fund 1. It's a mixed basket again of PUDs and PDP. We also have the drilling fund, which is the Wildcat Fund, where we go drill some pretty crazy wells. We have the Bitcoin mining fund, where we invest in a Bitcoin mine that is in process. Actually, we've already bought most of the equipment for it. So I think I'm probably going to close that fund pretty quick, because if other people want to come in, that's great, but we're kind of like tapped out. We've got another megawatt coming in. We're already operating one megawatt facility down in South Texas. So this will be our second big facility. And then we have the new fund, which you referred to, the America First Energy Fund. And that one's a little bit different from the Yield Fund. It's the same concept of multiple wells, PUDs and PDP, but we already selected all the wells. So we got basically more or less a first right of refusal on this package. And so we have to raise $20 million in order to take the whole package down. And if we do, we already know which wells we're buying. We already know which wells we're drilling. And so it's more of a like, I started to notice when I was talking to all these investors, you want to know what you're investing in. Like, yes, people generally like the open fund idea. So when I had the first Yield Fund, they wanted to know, well, which wells are you going to go drill? And of course, it's sort of annoying because you as a fundraiser, you can't get access to wells until you have money. And oftentimes those operators want to go drill those wells right away. And so it's just this balance, right? So we're lucky we did a really good job with it. The first fund is doing pretty well. And now we're trying to do this America First Energy Fund, which is intentionally like all South Texas wells. It's an operator we're pretty close with, so we trust them, we know them. And I really value putting investor money into small local operators, which is something that we're trying to do more. Mostly independents. Our track record to date has been with mostly independent oil and gas operators. We've had a couple opportunities to partner with some really quite a bit larger operators as well, and we'll probably end up doing that in the next year. But I really wanted to focus on making sure our track record was good before we really start to branch out and drill other wells. So the first fund was mostly conventional vertical wells, right, which is interesting because that's not really my bread and butter. My bread and butter has always been unconventional. So it's been good for me to learn a lot more about that kind of stuff. I mean, of course you learn about it mechanically in graduate school, but like if you don't have firsthand experience, it's hard to go and be successful with that. So this has been good for me to learn a lot. And then in this next fund, I anticipate that we'll put a couple more unconventionals in there because I'm starting to.
The first fund?
And yeah, and the energy for, well, actually I don't think there's any horizontals in the America First Energy Fund. In the yield fund and the Wildcat, there might be, but we'll see. It depends on what deals come up. I'm starting to reach out to some buddies who have, of course, that's the benefit. The other benefit of working with us is that, or investing with us rather, is that Ginny and I and our other staff members have extensive networks because we've been around the industry for so long at big companies, small companies. Ginny was at a reserves analysis group. So we know a bunch of people who are operators now. And because they know us, they're more willing to give us working interest in their wells, which is pretty cool. So we're working on some partnerships right now, and hopefully those will pan out for the new funds and maybe the old fund too. So,
well, I mean, I'm just always so impressed with what you and the team are doing over there. I mean, it's y'all are. I like it. Y'all are a small, tight knit group. Y'all are a good shop. And the thing, so you're the CEO, so you have a lot of conversations to have with investors. But not only that, you're also a geologist too. Not the geologist, one of the geologists. So not only are you trying to get these funds funded, I guess. Yep. Funds funded, but you're also looking at every single deal that comes across. You're also talking to investors. I mean, the hats that y'all wear over there, it's like,
startup life is technically EnergyFunders isn't a startup, but I consider it to be. A lot of the infrastructure was in place for the company before I came in, but because we made so many changes, it's basically a startup.
I went through a rebranding. I mean, that was kind of that was exciting to see.
Rebrand was super fun. I'm loving. We're doing some. We've recently partnered with a digital advertising group to try and get more traction with more investors. I mean, Ginny and I have great networks in oil and gas, but when it comes down to it, the platform that we're running is really we call it retail investor platform. So we really want it to be this democratized investing opportunity, right, for this asset class that has previously been inaccessible to most investors. So in order to reach those investors, you can't rely on your oil and gas network. You have to rely on other networks. And while we do have, I'm from Boulder, Colorado, there's a large number of wealthy people there, but they're not interested in investing in oil and gas. Right. So we've partnered with this digital marketing firm, and we're trying to get more eyeballs, right? Like the more eyeballs who can come look at EnergyFunders, the more people will start to invest and the more exposure we will have. I also personally will be using it I like to use it as more of like an education tool as well. I really respect what the guys over at Digital Wildcatters are doing for oil and gas education, but for me, being from Boulder, Colorado, and being a tree hugger, it's even more important for me to use this platform that I have to increase education about how important oil and gas is. So,
and I think that's so. What Digital Wildcatters, flipping the barrel, like all what everyone's doing right now is I love how it's gone. It's kind of pulling back from the you need oil. It's gone from that. Obviously, that approach shouting, at a wave's not going to work. So it's the educational content that I think is truly enjoyable. Lindsay has a comment. She says, well-informed investors understand the value prop of investing in oil and gas, but the general public has less than a favorable outlook on our industry. And this question is $1 million question, Lindsay. So if you know the answer, let me know. What is EnergyFunders doing to change the narrative, and can I help? Great.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lindsay. I really think that one of the big things is removing the stigma of oil and gas being kind of let's see, the words I will choose to use are important here, a cloak and dagger good old boys club.
All right.
So one thing that I think we're doing inherently is, I'm a chick, right? And I'm running basically what amounts to an oil company. Yep. So seeing more women step into positions that other women see them in is very important. STEM education is super important. I think that making sure that we are speaking honestly about what happens in the world is important, and I don't think that always happens. I think that there has always been an issue in oil and gas in particular with it feeling like very, there will be blood, like I'm going to drink your milkshake, a bunch of scam artists, and I refuse to partner with people like that. You'd be shocked how many we get submittals all the time for prospects that people want funded, and you'd be really surprised. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised.
No.
There's a lot of scammy stuff out there, and my job is to not invest in scammy stuff. My job is to invest in legit people who know their business, right? Like, and I think my background, pedigree, whatever you want to call it, lends itself to more of that type of investing. So I don't know. I think it's something we all need to be focused on. I think it's irresponsible for anybody who works in oil and gas not to have an honest take on it and have a well-researched, well-thought-out response to somebody who will say something to them about, oil and gas is this X, Y, and Z, right? So some of them, but one of my best friends, she's in renewables, and we have these conversations all the time. And I mean, for me as a scientist, technical papers are always what I rely on, right? So there's a lot of really interesting research about climate change that I've been looking at lately. And I think it's important to have eyes wide open about that. Don't take what you see in the media as rote, like just inform yourself, go do the research yourself before you make a decision. And, don't follow the groupthink narrative. I think that's a big problem that we also have always had in America, is that you just want to go with what somebody else says, but you really need to think about each individual issue as an individual issue, not like I'm going to decide that on this collective issue, group of issues, think this way. Like that's not smart.
Well, not only that, it's also important to, like, if you do have an opinion about something, be open to, opinions change,
Exactly.
Opinions change, people change, and you should allow that to change. That's how
Yep.
we do it.
Yep.
So I kind of have a question about kind of what's going on, and you can answer as much as you want, but with everything going on right now, I'm here, live on Crüe Conversations with the Ukraine Russian war raging right now. With the tomato soup on with the Germany energy issues right now, with Poland burning trash, with Biden releasing SPR, with everything going on in this macro energy environment, Laura. First,
right.
A, how are you getting sleep? B, how is this, changing is it changing the conversations you're having? Are you seeing more kind of interest in investing in oil and gas? Because people are starting to learn, as Mike Umbro says, it's the energy boomerang. People are starting to learn about, okay, well, maybe we can't jump to this this imaginatory clean, beautiful utopian world overnight.
Yeah.
So there's some sort of I'm seeing some sort of slow understanding to the realities of energy versus the expectation.
The problem is we live in an echo chamber. This is my problem with EFT and I go on my LinkedIn and I'm like, I know we all think that this is starting to change, but we all live in our own little echo chamber. I go to Boulder all the time. They don't think that way at all. There is no energy boomerang right now in most of the liberal places in the country.
Right.
If we actually want to make a difference, we start to break into those communities that do not want to be broken into. And the only way to do that is through communication with people they trust. So like me, for example, when I go to Boulder, I make it a point to speak to everybody I can about why oil and gas is important. The only way they'll speak to me is if they know me, they trust me, whatever. You can't just assume that everybody's going to listen to the big bad wolf. That's not going to happen. We have to figure out better ways of communication, and shit talking each other on EFT is not the way to do it. I get it. And I totally think the energy boomerang is a thing, but it's not happening in those more liberal communities that are more focused on renewables, right? I think that there's one guy, his name's Scott Tinker. He's a professor at the BEG, Bureau of Economic Geology at UT. I never had him as a professor, but I know him, and he has put together this thing called Switch. So there's a movie called Switch. There's a second movie called, I think, Switch On. And then now there's I think maybe it's on PBS, and they do either weekly or monthly energy interviews. And it's very neutral. It's not politicized. There's no political bent to it at all, which I think is super important. And they interview scientists about different energy issues. And it's fascinating, and it's really good. And I highly recommend that everybody watch Switch.
You said I mean, you said PBS?
Yeah, PBS, I believe.
Okay, I did.
But if you just Google Switch Scott Tinker, it'll pop up. It's really, really good.
Gotcha.
And basically it talks about consumption. So one of the main issues that we're having is that Americans generally, and Western Europeans as well, like we overconsume. We want things, we want cars, we want this, we want that, we want the lights on. Like we just need to consume less. It's basic supply demand economics. It's like basic economics. If you consume less, you will need to produce less. It talks about it being more of like, this is kind of a silly analogy, but I'm a chick, so I'm going to say it. There's this book called The French Girl Diet. And the point is, you can eat whatever you want, just eat little tiny bits of it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the energy infrastructure economy, the energy economy. We can do whatever we want. We just have to do it in little small bits. So like over consuming oil and gas is a problem. I don't think anybody should be doing that. We should have people starting to work on research on different things. Nuclear is amazing. We should be doing more nuclear. Those the little micro nuclear plants are incredible. That's such a good idea. But you need to diversify your investments into those things because otherwise they don't get funded. But guess where that money comes from? Oil and gas. You have to have these big companies like Shell and Exxon who are making these investments into renewable or green tech or whatever you want to call it, clean tech, to try and change that so that you do have more of a French girl diet. You can eat more from different pies. And frankly, we live in a capitalist society. So like what's going to win at the end of the day is the thing that's cheapest and packs the most punch.
And so, that's a very interesting point you brought up, because I've been seeing that theme being discussed a lot too. It's not a question of switching to EVs or this or that. It's about reducing consumption, and I think that's probably the biggest impact that us as humans can do. So I dig it. And look, Laura, what are we not discussing right now that you like to discuss before we open it up? I know that you had stuff going on today. I appreciate you taking the time. Always love catching up with you. And we're overdue for some margs at Tony's, by the way.
Yeah, let's go.
What am I missing right now that you like to bring up about either EnergyFunders or kind of the state of everything right now that I'm not touching on?
I think you did a pretty good job. I mean, those are sort of the things that are always in the forefront of my mind too. Is how are we going to convince the people who are unconvincible that this is important, that they should pay attention to it? I mean, yes, I run an investment platform. I run funds for investing in, right now, specifically oil and gas. But I can't convince everybody in the world that they should invest with me.
Right.
What I would like to be able to do is convince the people who don't want to invest that they should even consider oil and gas as an important part of our energy infrastructure. I feel like I'm like not pumping up the company at all. I'm like, I want to be an educator, but it's true. I mean, I'm very passionate about that, and I'm hopeful to have an opportunity through the company to use that as a platform for education.
Well, y'all are honestly, y'all are everywhere. Y'all are all over the board. And for those that want to learn more about it, where can people find, either get in contact?
Great question.
Where can they find more information about EnergyFunders?
Yeah, so EnergyFunders, you can find us www.energyfunders.com. We have a pretty serious LinkedIn presence. You can follow me, Laura Pommer. You can follow me on Twitter. I think it's Laura Pommer also. We also have a Twitter, and of course, feel free to reach out, email, call, whatever. Laura@energyfunders.com. We just did a little advertisement this morning with a group called Liquidity, LITQUIDITY. That was kind of interesting. I did it as a little bit of an experiment because, I told you we've been running this digital advertising thing too, and it's been pretty impressive. We've seen a lot of inbounds. I think that once EnergyFunders gets enough traction outside of the oil and gas industry, I think it'll really blow up. I think there is a niche, there's a place for us. People are really excited about the potential returns from oil and gas, and being able to help support American oil and gas, which is, as we know, super important, and can fill the SPR ourselves for much cheaper. But I'm not going to talk about that right now. It'll just piss me off.
You have other stuff to do, but I just want to say that, I remember, when you first went over to EnergyFunders, we're figuring it out. And, you're going
crazy.
100 miles a minute. You had all these different plates spinning, and it seems like, obviously as the company's matured and the team's built out, and your message is clear and kind of y'all dialed in what y'all are doing. It still seems like you're running 100 miles a minute. You have all these plates spinning. So hats off to you and the rest of the team.
Thank you.
And honestly, I recommend everyone to go check out, give them a follow on LinkedIn. They put out some pretty cool videos. The last one I saw, I think you were at a gas location.
Yeah, we were at a location and our mine location, so that was fun. We went and shot some content down there at the. Thanks, Jeff. We went and shot some content at the Bitcoin mine and went and did a well site visit. And I mean, I think people seeing what well sites look like is really important too. I mean, it's not, people need to understand that oil and gas isn't bad. The people in oil and gas aren't bad. And, you of course are making a wonderful effort at exposing the good people in oil and gas. And I really appreciate you for doing that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm checking out. You have really cool content out there, and I love how you're kind of bringing cameras to locations so people kind of get a feel of it. Because you're right, a lot of people think that an oil and gas location is like pretty much the bottom of the tanker ship in a water world. You know what I mean? You just got one dude.
Don't get me wrong. I've seen some tragic locations, but it's, most of them aren't that way. Most of them are really pristine. Actually, I drove by, I think it must have been a BPX Eagleford location. Holy shit, that was the cleanest, most beautiful, like little 4 pump jacks in a row thing going on. It was so nice. I was like, oh, this is fancy.
I guess my only rule out there for those people, design locations, do it for the gram.
Yes, exactly.
Not it for the gram, but does anyone have any conversations? Laura, thank you. I know it's New York. You'd rather do other stuff than get on a Zoom call right now.
No, it's totally fine. It's with you. I wouldn't miss it for the world, JP.
It's still New York City. So
yes.
If anyone has any comments or anything like that, obviously connect with her. Shoot her a note on LinkedIn or anything like that. Check out EnergyFunders. Give them a follow. It's really good content, whether it's educational or kind of what they're doing. It's exciting stuff. So, Laura, awesome catching up with you. We're overdue. Hats off to you and the team, and keep doing what you're doing. If there's anything that we can do on our end or anyone else in the viewers, let us know, please. All right. So we're gonna invest in the domestic oil and gas, and that's through the America First.
Yeah. we call it fondly the French Fry Fund. Because you remember the Freedom Fries when they tried
I brought up Freedom Fries in Fort Worth 2 days ago.
Yep. Freedom Fries.
Yeah. Freedom Fries and Freedom Toast.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, what's funny, James says, awesome talk. Appreciate all you both are doing for oil and gas.
Thanks, James.
So thanks, James. But it's funny. So that was actually back at, I think September 12th, there was a Congress passed like, we're the French.
Oh my God, so silly.
All right, well, Laura, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And again, if you're in Oklahoma City area, Kids Crüe next Friday. Check out EnergyFunders. They got the American First Fund, America, and we will talk to everyone later. And have a great day, Laura. And we'll talk when you get back.
Awesome. Thanks, JP.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.